Joe Black here, providing some sign translation. And I would like to do a quick message from our simulcast in Spanish for everyone here today.
Hello, my name is Simone and this is Alice, and we are interpreters from the Just Communities Language Justice Network.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Simone, mi compañera es Alice. Somos intérpretes de la parte de comunidades justas de la red de intérpretes de la justicia social.
We will be providing simultaneous interpretation from English to Spanish for the event for tonight.
Estaremos proveyendo información y traducción simultánea de inglés a español y español a inglés.
A few guidelines when working with an interpreter. Please speak in a loud, clear voice. This is the sign to speak up.
Vamos a pedir unas señales, por favor, para que podamos tener una comunicación clara. Si estamos hablando un poco de manera baja, le vamos a pedir que eleven su voz con esta seña.
Please speak at a moderate pace. This is the sign to slow down.
Por favor, hablen de manera calmada. Si pedimos que hagan con esta seña, es que hablen un poco más despacio.
And please only speak one at a time. The equipment is outside, so if you need help figuring it out, we'll be there.
Pedimos que hablen de una persona a la vez. Cada voz es importante. Tenemos el equipo en la parte de atrás. Si usted requiere equipo, por favor, pase con nosotros.
And then at the end of the event, please return the equipment to the table where you found it. Thank you.
Al final del evento, por favor, regrese el equipo en la parte donde lo encontraron. Gracias.
Thank you. I'd also like to start us out with a big thank you to the Montecito Association for helping get everyone together on this event for our public safety power shutoff topic tonight. And a special thanks out to Anthony here with the school district that provided this great venue for us to be able to communicate. So I'm going to go ahead and start us out with Doss Williams, Supervisor, 1st District, County Santa Barbara.
Good evening. Doss Williams, 1st District County Supervisor. It is the one thing that I have walked away from in the events of the last 18 months that's more powerful than anything else is that it is powerful for us to gather, usually here, to try to address the challenges that we have in the community. And because Southern California Edison will be next, and we really appreciate them being here to answer questions because many of us have concerns. I want to put out there the principal concerns that the county and Montecito Fire District are united on, which is number one, that because our weather patterns that could necessitate events like this are intermittent, i.e., sundowner winds usually come up in the afternoon. They peak in the mid to late evening, and then they go down in the middle of the night. Because of that, we are hoping that the utilities will have the necessary staffing for as fast as possible response to inspect line. One of the things they'll tell us tonight is that they need to inspect the line before repowering. And what we're asking for is enough staffing so that repowering could take place to avoid multiple day shutoffs, which is the situation that would have the largest threat to you as our constituents, both to economic and inconvenience, but to some that are dependent on power for their life or livelihood, things that are much more precious. And then the second of those principal concerns is how do we know and how can we help make sure that every individual that relies on power for their health, whether that's a respirator or some other condition in which they are absolutely dependent on power, how do we know and how can we help Edison and, for that matter, PG&E in their territory, make sure that we find each one of those individuals so that none of our neighbors are left behind in this event. So again, thank you for coming here. This is, it is heartwarming even when we deal with subject matters like this that are challenging, to see our community coming together. And I look forward to helping answer some of the questions that we have here tonight. With that, I'll turn it back over to Matt.
Thank you, Supervisor. So,
Thank you, Matt. Good evening. My name is Rondi Guthrie, and I'm in local public affairs with Southern California Edison. I also have a colleague here with me this evening, Jerry Aguilar, that can answer any questions related to medical baseline and critical care customers. Thank you, Supervisor Williams, for hosting this event tonight. Thank you to the county and our local cities, the incredible partnership. You're in good hands. They've been incredibly engaged and proactive on the PSPS and all the wildfire mitigation measures that we're all working on throughout the state. All right. So I'd like to start off the presentation. While wildfire is top of mind to all of us in this community, it is important that we're all prepared for any disaster that may come our way. And we've had our share here. So we'd just like to remind everybody, you have a lot of great resources here in your community. You have Aware and Prepare. We have American Red Cross, but to be prepared, you know, make your emergency kit and know what you're gonna do in times of disaster. Those of us that grew up in California are used to a fire season. It was traditionally, you know, late summer through fall, and we had our fire season. We had what we called kind of forest fires at the time. And recently, you know, changes to California's climate, drought, bark beetle infestation. We've really now are essentially experiencing a year-round fire season. It is estimated that there are 10 million acres of land containing ready-to-burn kindling from nearly 147 million dead and dying trees. As you can see here, 10 of the most destructive fires in California's history have happened since 2015, and 8 of those 10 have occurred in the last 2 years. Earlier this year, SCE filed a wildfire mitigation plan with the California Public Utilities Commission. This plan is intended to address and greatly reduce fire ignitions caused by utility infrastructure. It is also intended to further fortify the electric system against the increasing threat of extreme conditions driven by climate change. About 25% of SCE's service area is located in high fire risk areas. The plan takes a broad approach that includes enhanced inspections of all of the company's overhead power lines and equipment in high fire risk areas in the immediate term to identify and remediate potential issues. It will further harden infrastructure, bolster situational awareness capabilities, enhance operational practices, and harness the power of data and technology. One of the first things that Governor Newsom did when he took office was to create a wildfire strike force. In mid-April, the strike force issued a report that sets out steps the state must take to reduce the incidence and severity of wildfires. In early 2018, the California Public Utilities Commission issued maps that are designed specifically for the purpose of identifying areas where there is an increased risk of utility-associated wildfires. As you can see on this map of Santa Barbara County, the red area depicts an extreme risk, and the yellow area depicts an elevated risk. Again, you will see that most of Santa Barbara County is within one of those 2 tiers. Eliminating any side of the fire triangle helps to prevent ignitions. The goal of SCE's wildfire mitigation strategy is to minimize the chances our equipment becomes an ignition source. This includes removing the fuel side through our vegetation management program and the heat side through our PSPS protocol, which I'll discuss in more detail. Passed in 2018, Senate Bill 901 required all utilities to prepare and submit a wildfire mitigation plan. Our wildfire mitigation plan activities comprise incremental and new work developed specifically to reduce wildfire risk. The wildfire mitigation plan is broken into two major categories aligned to our long-term strategy: operational practices and infrastructure improvements. A major aspect of our plan is the installation of insulated wire or covered conductor. We believe it is foundational to reducing the leading cause of ignitions. We are proactively replacing existing bare conductor with covered conductor in high fire risk areas to reduce ignition risks. To date, our crews, by 2020, the end of 2020, we hope to have 600 miles of covered conductor installed with a goal of 5,000 by 2025. We are also supplementing covered conductor with other protective devices that will further reinforce our grid, such as faster acting fuses and reclosers. Enhanced overhead inspections. I know this community and everyone who lives in a high fire risk area has seen our crews out there in full force. We're out there doing vegetation management, and we've been out there doing enhanced overhead inspections on all of our equipment within high fire risk areas. So throughout our entire service territory, that means that we've inspected over 400,000 pieces of equipment in high fire risk areas. We have completed all of those inspections from the ground in this area, and in the next few weeks, you will actually see some helicopter and possibly drone activity in inspecting that same equipment from the air. SCE is also considering undergrounding where appropriate as an additional risk mitigation measure. Underground systems can help reduce the risk of wildfires and increase reliability during high winds and storms by reducing exposure of electrical infrastructure to extreme weather conditions. However, undergrounding also has a lot of challenges in obtaining easements and permits, and designing and installing underground systems are far more expensive for our customers. When we, just for comparison, we talk about the covered conductor that we will be installing, costs about $430,000 per mile to install, and undergrounding in a very flat, very easy terrain is about $3 million per mile to install. Underground systems also are harder to operate for our operators, and outages tend to last longer on underground systems. However, we are taking a look at undergrounding in high fire areas. We obviously, besides the safety aspect, there's the inevitable aesthetics of undergrounding as well. Situational awareness is an integral part of emergency management. We are strategically deploying weather stations to collect high-resolution weather data. This enables more accurate forecasting at the circuit level and increased understanding of current conditions. We currently have approximately 200 weather stations installed with a target of 850 by 2020. We also have a 24/7 Situational Awareness Center, which is co-located with our Emergency Operations Center and Watch Office. In addition, we have meteorologists on staff with expertise in the electrical system. We have added high-resolution weather capability, which enables us to track weather conditions on a very local, very granular level, and alerts our team when conditions reach pre-identified thresholds. We have also added fire monitoring cameras. These are high-definition pan-tilt zoom cameras installed on our towers to monitor wildfire activity. This is a picture of the first HD camera we installed. This is Santiago Peak in Orange County, and some of you may remember the Holy Fire that was in Orange County, Riverside County area. This camera turned out to be very instrumental to the Orange County Fire Authority in being able to see what was going on up there and deploying the necessary resources. The public can view these wildfire cameras on the website listed here. When the project is fully implemented, local fire officials will have the ability to control the cameras. Again, this will help the fire departments decide how to deploy resources to fight the fire. The public can also view data from SCE and other weather stations from the website shown on this slide. As we all know, trees, shrubs, and other vegetation can cause safety hazards and power outages if they grow near or into power lines. We have increased the frequency of vegetation patrols in the most severe high fire risk areas to identify potential hazards. SCE inspects approximately 900,000 trees annually and trims nearly 700,000 of them per year. We take this work very seriously. SCE has also implemented a 12-feet tree clearance from distribution lines in high fire areas to ensure annual growth will not encroach on compliance distances. Under certain circumstances, SCE will proactively de-energize circuits to minimize the chance of our equipment becoming the ignition of a fire. PSPS, as we refer to it, Public Safety Power Shutoff, primarily impacts distribution lines in high fire risk areas. The frequency of the PSPS activations depends on the weather conditions. However, SCE will likely activate the PSPS protocol more often than we have in the past. We realize this is a major disruption to customers. However, we believe the safety benefits outweigh the impacts. And I'm sure some of you heard we actually did implement a PSPS kind of along the Gaviota coast within the last few weeks. We base the decision to activate PSPS on a number of things. Real-time information from trained personnel positioned locally in high fire risk areas. Input from SCE fire management experts. Information from technologies like the weather stations and high-resolution weather data I talked about. Input from our local and state fire authorities and emergency management personnel. Awareness of mandatory or voluntary evacuation orders in place. Expected impact of service interruption on essential services. The location of evacuation centers and other emergency operations. We have established targeted wind speed thresholds by circuit. As additional mitigation measures are deployed, such as the covered conductors and tree removals, we expect the frequency of PSPS events to decrease. Outages will only impact the specific circuits experiencing extreme weather. So in other words, it would be highly unlikely that an entire city would be without power. With all of the technology we're putting out there, we're really able to identify circuit by circuit where we have the largest concern. How long might a PSPS last? The length of the weather system and the time it takes to safely re-energize the circuit, which we estimate can range anywhere between a half a day to a few days. And we have listened to questions and concerns, particularly from Supervisor Williams and the county on the special circumstances we have up here with sundowner winds that may come during the evening, but we might be okay during the day. And our staff is definitely looking at that, and that those decisions would be made to possibly re-energize when it was safe to do so, even if we had to de-energize again at night. We've also been working very closely with cell providers and communications companies and believe that they can deploy necessary backup generation and necessary resources to keep information flowing during a PSPS. So the notification process. This is what is in our wildfire mitigation plan. It's important to note that weather conditions can change drastically quickly, so this is what we call our ideal timeline and how we will notify the public and our city and county partners. About 4 to 7 days out before the weather conditions that may cause us to implement a PSPS are predicated to happen, our meteorologists and fire scientists and fire management identify the potential for conditions that result in PSPS. They then begin to monitor the situation more closely and start coordination with our emergency management team and other personnel. 3 days out, as we have better models and forecasts, if the potential for PSPS is still active, we will activate our incident management team responsible for managing the incident and start to identify potential circuits that may be de-energized. At 2 days out, we continue to refine the areas that may be impacted. After we have identified those areas, we begin our notification process. We first will notify local governments, first responders, the State Office of Emergency Management, and other emergency managers. We understand that as soon as we begin to notify customers, they will start calling City Hall and their elected officials and first responders, so it's important that they are notified first. We then begin notification to essential customers like water providers and hospitals. We also begin notification to critical care customers. These are customers that are on some type of life-saving device that requires electricity. We have a special process for notifying these customers. We first attempt to reach them through our automated calling system. If they do not answer, we continue to call, and if they still do not answer, we will send someone to their door. This is a process that is in place for any extended outage, not just PSPS. The difference here is that we are able to start the process 48 hours in advance of the outage. We also do regular outreach to these customers, reminding them to have plans in place for an extended outage. Finally, we then notify all remaining residential and business customers. This process is then repeated 24 hours out, assuming the weather conditions remain the same. We also use the same process after power is turned off. We cannot provide notification immediately prior to de-energization because, as I discussed earlier, these decisions are really made on real-time, on-the-ground information. As power is restored, we again notify customers. However, before turning power back on, as Supervisor Williams said, SCE sends personnel out to inspect the line to make sure there is no damage or debris in the lines. After it is determined safe to do so, power is quickly restored. These next two slides, again, just a reminder to have a plan, some resources and websites for you to go to help with that. And one of the main things I want to emphasize on this slide is to update your contact information with your utility company. We can only notify you if we have your information. So if you maybe signed up for service 20 or 30 years ago and were using your landline at the time and don't even have one of those anymore, we need to know how you want us to reach out to you. So your mobile phone, email, text, however you would like to be reached out to, we will do that, but we need you to go and update your contact information on sce.com. With that.
Thank you, Rondi. We're going to add a few more speakers to our lineup here and get you some information and then have an opportunity to ask us some questions. So next up, I've got Chief Deputy Bonner, talk a little bit about what the Sheriff's Office has prepared for the community.
Thank you. Good evening. So I just want to talk about a few things from the law enforcement perspective. And I think the first thing is that we want to get the message out there is that when it comes to the critical services that you need from the Sheriff's Office, from the Highway Patrol, they're going to be there. Even if the power's out, we're going to have our patrols out there. They're going to be fully functional. They're not going to be impacted by that. We have redundancies. We have power backup, and those services are going to continue. There may be some delays with things like getting reports, copies of reports, or going out and getting some piece of property out of evidence. But when it comes to protecting you within your homes, within your neighborhoods, maintaining the security of the jail, that's going to continue uninterrupted. And in fact, when it comes to the patrol function, our intent is that if we have a community that's going to go into a PSPS situation, that we're actually going to upstaff and make sure that we have additional patrol personnel working in that area available to you. Also, should a widespread PSPS occur, we would be upstaffing our dispatch center. Again, and also working with the Emergency Operations Center call line and 211, there's a big coordination that occurs to make sure that we can handle emergency calls for service as well as inquiries from the public and just general requests for information that may come. And we're going to make sure that that continues. So just to kind of flip the coin real quickly. So there's also some things that we can all do as community members that can keep our communities safer. And the first one, and probably the one that gets forgot about the most, is when the power goes out, the traffic lights go out, the street lights go out, and our level of safety out on the streets go down, right? And sometimes folks forget about that, and they're driving way too fast for the conditions. We all need to remember that that has occurred. You know, I remember an instance back when I actually worked patrol where I almost got clobbered by another car because I had came to a stop at a stoplight. I knew the power was out. I stopped. I slowly started to move forward, and I just happened to get this feeling that this car that was coming at a high speed wasn't going to stop, and so I stopped. And that car proceeded through the intersection at 30, 40 miles an hour, and they just were completely unaware that the power or the lights were out. And we all need to remember that when the lights go out, those intersections become four-way stops. And even if it's just a generalized residential area, we need to slow down and be aware that the lighting is down. People may not be aware, and just don't trust that they're going to do what you think they're going to do. The other thing being is that it's really important that you report suspicious circumstances. If you see something, say something. That's something we try to say all the time. You know, although we're going to be upstaffed, they still can't be everywhere at once. And as community members, you are the most knowledgeable about what belongs, doesn't belong, what's normal, what's not normal within your communities. And it's really important that if you see something that's not normal, give us a call so that we can come out there and take a look at it and make sure that it's not something that's wrong. And the best way to do that, if for suspicious circumstance, call 911. I don't want anybody to think that, hey, this is all going on right now, I don't want to call 911, I'm going to call an informational line. If it's something suspicious, you're concerned about the safety of your community, call 911 and we'll come out there and check it out. You know, it's true all the time, but particularly when we go into these types of circumstances, whether it be a fire that's occurring or a PSPS, it's really important that you give us that call so that we can come out there and check on it. So really appreciate everybody being here tonight.
Thank you, Craig. Next up, we've got Nick with Montecito Water Association District.
Thanks, Matt. Good evening, Nick Turner, General Manager for Montecito Water District. First and foremost, I'd like to assure all of you that the Montecito Water District is prepared to provide continuous potable water service for customer use and for fire protection during both a short and extended power outage. SCE has announced that they intend to implement PSPs that could last 5 to 7 days in response to wildfire risk. Montecito Water District is equipped with or to provide uninterrupted potable water service to all of our customers throughout a PSP event. Our critical facilities are equipped with backup power generators which will be operated ahead of and throughout any PSP event. These backup power generators are tested on a regular basis and are in good working order. The district has redundant refueling options, which include on-site fuel storage, as well as the use of local fuel suppliers for refueling services as needed. Redundancy is built into our potable water system. Failure of a backup power generator for any reason would not prevent the district from providing continuous potable water service. In addition, some of the district's water supplies are delivered through partner agencies, such as the City of Santa Barbara's Cater Water Treatment Plant and the Bureau of Reclamation's South Coast Conduit. These facilities also have backup power generators that will be utilized to avoid water service interruption. In terms of your personal preparations, if you have water use fixtures on your property that require power, such as irrigation timers, pool pumps, in-house water treatment systems, or private booster pumps, you will want to plan accordingly. Also, while the main topic of this event is PSPs, I want to briefly mention that considering the water needs of your house is an important part of your personal emergency planning. A recommended guideline is to store at least 1 gallon of potable water per person per day for drinking and sanitation. However, individual needs vary. Helpful links and our information can be found on our website at montecitowater.com. In closing, I'd like to reiterate that PSP events are not anticipated to impact Montecito Water District's potable water service. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. That was some great news for our community. Next up, I'd like to get Diane Gabriel here from the Montecito Sanitary District.
Good evening, everyone. Diane Gabriel, General Manager, Montecito Sanitary District. So you've just heard from Montecito Water District that they're going to have water for everybody. So I'm here to assure you that it's going to be perfectly fine to use that water inside your home. It's going to go down the drain safely to the sanitary sewer system. The Montecito Sanitary District, very similar to Montecito Water District, we have emergency backup generators at all of our facilities. Runs the complete treatment plant, all of our sewer lift stations. We also have backups to our backups. So given the essential service that we provide, public health, environmental protection, we have to have the wastewater, making it to the wastewater treatment plant and properly treating it. So we have other generators that could be put in place and be made operational to run the whole treatment plant, to pump any of the wastewater from any of the lift stations, run our whole administration and our testing laboratory. The one critical announcement, though, that I have for folks are the private property owners that may have a private pump on their property that pumps their wastewater through their private lateral to the public sewer system. If you have a pump to pump your sewage on your property, from your property to the public system, and do not have backup power for that pump, it's very important for you to start looking into having backup power or to contact us. We're happy to work with you to come up with a specific plan for your property so that you can continue to use water during a power outage and not create some kind of sewer issue on your property. Worst case being that your wastewater, your sewage spills out into the environment. That is our number one job. We don't want to have it spill out into the environment. We want it to come to the sanitary sewer. If for some reason you don't know if you have a pump, we're happy to help on that too. You know, we don't expect you to know about these things. We want you to be able to use the water inside your home, have it go down the drain, and be assured that we are conveying it safely to the wastewater treatment plant and treating it properly. So if you do have questions about how your property is served, please contact the Montecito Sanitary District. You can contact our office during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, from between 8 and 4:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. That's some more great news for the community. And to follow up on more good news, we have Chief Kevin Taylor here from the Montecito Fire District.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. It's wonderful for us to all get together and try to take care of this small little challenge together as a community. Before we start talking about individual and family preparation for a PSPS event, I wanted to assure you that the fire department has been planning for these events for about 18 months and that we're in a good situation. As we just heard from Nick at the Water District, we don't expect any fire flow problems. In other words, if there is a significant fire or any fire at all, we will have plenty of water to be able to extinguish it. I also want to assure you that both of our fire stations and the dispatch center have redundant power that is set up and capable of providing essential service power for 5 to 7 days. The last thing I want to tell you is that during any PSPS, regardless of how long it's forecast to last, the fire department will be upstaffed. That's when we bring all of the off-duty firefighters back on duty to staff our equipment so that we can continue to provide the high level of service that you're used to. Now a little bit about individual and family preparation for these PSPS events. As we heard from Rondi this evening, these events will only occur when there's super high temperatures, low humidities, and very strong sundowner winds. That forecast means it'll be hotter and drier than normal. So as you're considering your family's preparations, please take that into account. While we hope that the PSPS will be significantly shorter, we're asking you to plan for 5 to 7 days without power. So there are 3 important actions that we'd like you to take. The first, again, to reiterate Rondi's comments, please contact Edison and make sure they have your up-to-date contact information. That way, when they work through their notification process, they won't have any problems reaching you. Second, take a look at your family, yourself, your business, and ask how an extended power outage will affect you. Are you prepared to be without power for 5 to 7 days? If you need more information about how to prepare for a PSPS, or for that matter, any other type of emergency, you can navigate to readysbc.org, and there's guidelines for before, during, and after a PSPS. If you can't wait, though, till you get home to find that information, all these wonderful men and women in red from Mirage are our trusted agents and our community's experts in all things disaster and disaster preparation. So get a hold of one of them this evening and they'll be happy to help you to prepare. Third, and this is my standard message that I deliver at all of these community meetings, if you haven't registered for emergency alerts yet, please do so. If you recall, that's readysbc.org and click the red button. So finally, in closing, I'd like to reiterate what Supervisor Williams said. If you depend on electricity for a medical or access or functional need, please contact SCE and see if you're eligible for their baseline medical program. Thanks for your attention, and I'll turn it back to Matt.
Thank you, Chief. So as we move to the next phase of this meeting where there's a question and answer period, I just want to let you know that we have representatives from the following offices. From Supervisor Doss Williams' office, we have Doss here tonight. We have Office of Emergency Management, Kelly Hubbard is here tonight, our director. Montecito Fire, you just heard Chief Taylor talk. County Sheriff's Office with Craig Bonner. County Public Health Department, Jan Kogler is here tonight with us. County Education Office, we have Susan Salcida here tonight. California Highway Patrol, we have Captain Cindy Ponce here tonight. And County Public Works, we have Scott McGulpin. Montecito Water, we have Nick Turner here tonight. And Montecito Sanitary, Diane Gabriel. And representing some of our friends over at the AFN ILRC network, we have Danny Anderson here tonight with us. And as you heard, Rondi is here from Southern California Edison. In addition to that, if you have communications related questions, we have a few folks here from different communications providers. So with that, I'm gonna open it up to some questions. And if you could raise your hand and make your way over to the microphone, and we can get a microphone to you. So that we can capture the questions on air so that people can hear what we're asking at home.
Just one moment, and I'll get it to you.
There we go.
Test one.
Thank you for this great and informative event. It's really heartening to see all of the agencies and leadership working together. My name is Craig Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of the Clean Coalition, and I just want to offer that the Clean Coalition is working on a framework for bringing renewables-driven resilience to the Santa Barbara region, to the whole area served by Southern California Edison, which is called the Goleta Load Pocket, named after the only substation that serves this area, which is from a transmission line that comes all the way from Ventura. So it's a very we're a very transmission vulnerable region, and if that transmission line goes out, the entire Goleta Load Pocket, the entire Santa Barbara region is out of power. We're working with the city of Calistoga, which is up in Northern California, and with Pacific Gas and Electric to provide renewables-driven resilience to the city of Calistoga. We're looking forward to working with all of the agencies here. We've talked already, we're engaged with already with a number that have been represented. We're looking forward to working with the rest of you.
That's great. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Marilyn Gilbert, I'm 38 years here in Montecito. I have a question to the Sheriff's Department, actually.
Great.
So during the Thomas Fire, there was a lot of evacuation, as you know. Almost all of it had to go down toward Coast Village Road. Now, Coast Village Road has a particular problem because you have a side street that flows into the two main lanes that head toward the south entrance to the freeway. The problem was that backed up traffic. I personally was there for over an hour just from Vaughn's trying to get down to where I had to go. And I called the Sheriff's Department. I don't think I spoke to you, Craig.
No.
But I said, we are in real deep doo-doo here. We need to get this traffic moving. And nobody is, I don't see any sheriff here to help us. Sure enough, a sheriff's car showed up. I thought, oh great, he's going to direct the traffic. He went around that side road, took a look, and left. I'd like to believe that if this happens again, that somebody from the Sheriff's Department is going to make sure that that traffic can flow through. Because if we're all stuck there, and if a fire or a mudslide comes down to Coast Village Road again, I wouldn't want to be in my car.
Right. So just real quick, fire brings kind of a different dynamic to it. When we're dealing with fires, generally the sheriff's office, our primary work at that point in time is affecting evacuations. And so in the initial portions of a significant fire that's going to require evacuations, we've dedicated all of our resources to that. However, we do work very closely with the California Highway Patrol and Santa Barbara PD. The California Highway Patrol, you know, again, everything's about trying to find enough resources at that initial first hour or two to affect the evacuations, you know, and like I said, we are putting our people out on the streets. They're going up and knocking on doors to affect those evacuations, but we're also working with our partners at California Highway Patrol, Santa Barbara PD, and we're trying to get those resources to that. And the resources are prioritized. And in a case like that, I can almost assure you, at the very onset, we're probably reaching out to California Highway Patrol, and they are trying to get resources there to do that. But again, our main focus at that initial start of a fire is to get folks noticed that hey, there's a problem and we need you to move out of your house to a safer location.
Good. Thank you, appreciate that. If you have questions, you can make your way up to the front and we'll try and get you a microphone. If you can't make it up this way, we can go ahead and get a microphone over to you. Anthony in the back, you have a question for us?
And I'm sorry, I have someone right here.
Oh,
and then
sorry.
if you can line up for us, Anthony.
Yep.
Thank you.
He's my boss. I'm taking off my Mirage shirt. I'm putting on my teacher hat, and I have a question for Edison. Last week, you were checking your lines, and you flew your helicopters right over the school, and you hung out here for a long time. And I have to give you the perception of the kids who were rescued by helicopters. It brought all that trauma right back to them because it's the sound of helicopters again. And they were looking for teachers, what's going on, and we didn't know until Rusty, who is our assistant principal, finally found out it was Edison, and that's what's going on. So my request, or I guess thought is, if you have to check your lines either after 3 o'clock, that'd be great, or if it's going to be during the school day, let the schools, because it's not just our school that has kids that have gone through this, but let the other schools know so we can give those kids, you know, that this is a good thing the helicopters are doing, not have them live in fear. And back to Anthony.
Anthony, do you want to add to that, or you want her to? Okay.
Sure. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We generally try to broadcast when we are doing our helicopter inspections. It sounds like that didn't get to the right people, so we'll definitely take that back. We also try to do some social media and notify our city and county partners, but it sounds like we didn't do a good enough job on that one, so take that back. Thank you.
Thank you, Rondi. The next question, Danny.
Hi, I'm Danny Anderson. I'm the Executive Director of the Independent Living Resource Center, and I'll be available for questions afterwards. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to let all of you know what ILRC is doing as kind of the only cross-disability organization in our area. 20% of Americans have a disability. Many of us use life-supporting and life-saving in-home devices, such as my wheelchair. If it's not charged, I can't leave my bed. If I need a CPAP, I can't breathe to sleep. These are the kind of disproportionate effects that people with disabilities are experiencing and why we're super scared about these PSPSs. So I just wanted to let all of you know that we at ILRC have been spending a lot of time testing backup power systems, knowing that generators are not accessible for people like me. There's no way I'm cranking that thing. So we've been looking at other plug-in battery options, and if you yourself or someone you know has a disability and needs information about that, please let us know. The other things are, you know, creating a plan. If you don't drive, you can't just get in your car and head out a day before the PSPS. So we are also available to help with those backup plans. So please contact us. Our website is www.ilrc-trico.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. ILRC is doing some great things in the community and has some great resources.
And then after you, it's coming to the middle. So if anyone else has questions, if you can try to line up in the middle for me, please.
Anthony Rainey, Superintendent Montecito Union School. Welcome. We love to host these kinds of meetings. I have two questions, both for Edison, having to do with. Hi. Okay. Okay. I wasn't ready for a close-up. Both of which have to do with the schools and interacting with Edison. So on the one slide, you had the 3 different things that you look at when you're trying to make a decision. And the third one was, you know, disruption to essential services. So my question is, do you consider the schools to be an essential service? In the county of Santa Barbara, many children rely on the schools for their, you know, their hot meal, and you know, for a lot of our students have food scarcity, and this is where their medicines are. So I consider schools an essential service, and I wonder, in that third category, are schools an essential service? And the second thing, when you were talking about your communication plan, I really like the idea that you're giving some folks that need a little bit more time to figure things out. You're giving them a little bit of an advance notice, the policymakers, sheriff, you know. I would also ask, could you consider schools as that, in that category? Because we have to decide whether or not it's safe to have kids at school, and parents need some advance notice for that. We've learned the hard way here that a lot of school-aged families tend to look at the schools for communication and giving some information. So I'd like to, I obviously have an opinion, but maybe that's already been considered by you guys.
Thank you. So to address the essential use, there is a very specific criteria for what we consider essential use customers, and those generally are going to be, you know, fire services, jails, you know, police services, those types of things. So I do not believe that schools fit under that criteria of an essential use service for Southern California Edison's perspective. But what I will say in the planning phase is we do have account representatives that work very closely with our school districts. They have been out talking to the facility managers and others within the school district about PSPS, and would definitely be involved. We've had numerous meetings at the Office of Emergency Management, and several representatives from the local school districts have been there. So I believe they would be tied into this, you know, 2-day in advance type notification. They would be looped into that as when we are coordinating and talking with our city and county partners.
Thank you, Rondi. And from the Santa Barbara County's Office of Emergency Management's perspective, we definitely, upon notification from the utilities, start our own internal teams of communication to make sure all of our local players understand what's coming or potentially coming. And we definitely have schools incorporated into those groups. So thank you for the question. Lisa.
I have a question from, we have a few questions coming in from people watching at home. So let's see. What is Edison going to do to protect our homes from power surges happening when they reinstate power after PSPS? And if a surge happens, will these costs be reimbursed?
Okay, thank you.
So we have a lot of helpful tips. We have some brochures over here on our website on how to prepare for any power outage, especially ones we know that are coming. Certainly unplug appliances it would be a great thing to do. I would suggest going to sce.com to find lots of other helpful tips on how to prepare for an outage. Generally speaking, anybody is welcome to file a claim. We have a process to file a claim, and that's also available online.
Thank you, Rondi. Katie, do you have a question as well?
This is another question or comment from a viewer at home,
Great.
or person at home. The maps on the Edison website are not detailed enough to determine whether or not I am in the proposed shut-off zone. I called Edison. They could not tell me if I was in the proposed shut-off zone either. This is frustrating to constituents. We receive an alert from you, but we can't tell if it applies to us.
So a couple of things. At this point, everyone who lives on a PSPS circuit should have received at least 2 mailers letting you know that you indeed live on a circuit that could be impacted by PSPS in a high fire risk area. The maps, I've heard that. I think we're going to take another look at how detailed we can make the maps. You'll see some that have a lot of street detail if it's a smaller circuit in a smaller area, and you'll see some if it's a very large circuit that serves a large area, it doesn't have a lot of street detail. So I definitely hear you on that one. I think we're going to look at what we can do to make the maps a little bit more street level detail.
Thank you, Rondi. Mr. Moore.
Hi, yes. See if I can. Hi, my name is Chris Moore. I'm with the California Public Utilities Commission. We are Southern California Edison's regulator, and we're working closely with them and a number of other parties to our proceeding regarding public safety power shutoffs. So currently the state is grappling with the best way to deal with this, and we have quasi-legislative powers to set rules for the investor-owned utilities, including Southern California Edison, and we have a number of community groups who are becoming part of the proceeding. This includes counties, community-based organizations, especially around the access functional needs population, who are making sure that Edison is accessing the proper data. The first stage of our proceeding, we dealt with notification of public safety partners. We're currently in another track where we're dealing with the access and functional needs population, and we are going to be going into another track dealing with backup power and the like. So if you're interested, I'm available. We have cpuc.ca.gov. You can find information there. You can also contact me. I'm your local government liaison for Santa Barbara County, and I can help connect you with all our documents and help you navigate the process if you wish to give formal comments on the record.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for being here tonight.
My name is Loy Beardsmore. I'm board president of Eucalyptus Hill Improvement Association. I've been looking at this from the beginning. It's my understanding from reliable sources, as of probably 2 to 3 months ago, that our cell towers only have 12 to 24-hour backup power. So my concern is I'm hearing from everybody's prepared. I haven't heard from Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, or anyone else that they have the ability to back up their cell towers for a week or however long it might be. So it's great for us to sign up for Aware and Prepare, but most of us are using our cell phones now, and we won't get notifications if a fire breaks out and we need to evacuate. So I'd like to have that addressed. Thank you.
Good afternoon. George Barella, Public Safety Liaison for Verizon. So in regards to backup power and redundancy, so each and every cell site has battery backup, 4 to 8 hours, depending upon where they're located. Rural obviously have more of a 8-hour per se. 80% of our entire network have battery generator backup as well. The reason for it not being at 100% is because we cannot have generators or fuel on roofs, etc. So therefore, we have fleets of portable generators that we actually deploy as soon as any cell site goes on battery notice. So we have 2 NOCs, notification centers across the United States, that not only see when a particular site goes on battery power, when there's an interruption of air conditioning, temperature change, things of that nature. All of those things actually alert the NOC, and they in turn will reach out to the local network team. With that being said, all of the generators have the capability of being refueled. We do have third-party fuel vendors in place, so we prioritize fuel across the network, across the nation. So we not only deal with wildfires, landslides, tornadoes, hurricanes, things of that nature. So we do this on a regular basis. So I hope that answers your question.
You can assure me that you can supply power to all of our cell towers for a week's length of time.
So depending upon right-of-way and or access to those locations, that can be a challenge as well. So we'll do our best effort in order to actually have power at every single one of our cell sites. Now remember, during an emergency, whether it be a natural disaster or otherwise, we're at the mercy of a couple different things. Number one, every single tower relies on a connection to that tower. So fiber backhaul, microwave, etc. If in fact those points of entry to those cell sites is down, so for instance during a major fire, the total infrastructure could be burnt to the ground. So therefore, the site itself could be on battery and or generator backup, but it has no way of transmitting it out. So that's when we actually deploy our mobile assets upon request, whether it be from a federal agency, local agency, etc. We'll bring in the assets that might be necessary. We can go as far as, bringing in something like a drone that can fly overhead for our search and rescue teams where there is no coverage or connectivity whatsoever, and fly that in for a period of time. So there's a number of things that can be done. It really depends on what the mission is and what the task at hand might be.
So I'd like to request, Rondi, that Southern California Edison do something to make this possible. Supervisor Williams, I'd like you to be on this. I've called Congressman Carbajal's office. It's the FCC, it's my understanding, that regulates all this, but it is, I think, our primary concern right now. If we lose our communications, we can't dial 911 for any emergencies. And so we need some kind of accountability or backup or whatever it is to ensure that we have cell service. Thank you.
Agreed, I understand. And there is some technology that we will be deploying coming up second quarter of next year that will be able to address that. So in regards to maybe a point-to-point type of a product that will work with zero infrastructure whatsoever. So that would be able to at least allow you to have some level of communication upon an outage.
Okay.
Yes. Any other questions for myself? Yes. No. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Barbara Peterson, and I have literally just moved to Montecito, August 1st. And I just wanted to share this evening a couple of things that I learned. I moved here from Berkeley, California, where I lived for over 40 years. I lost our dream house in the firestorm of 1991. 91. And I also endured one of the other most scary experience of my life in a tsunami. So I just wanted to say that tonight has been extremely interesting. Your planning is extremely impressive, and I know that pretty much everyone here has been through a lot over the last few years. But with all the planning, when a disaster occurs, you don't have much warning, let's say. Whether it be a tsunami, maybe. Maybe you have some warning. But not necessarily when a firestorm hits or the perfect storm hits. So I wanted to share quickly what I learned from both experiences, and it's really simple and very powerful. One, and there is not a day that goes by when I don't think about it, okay? So one, I always have gas in my car, and I'm the type that lets it go down to vapors. So every day, gas in the car because you just don't know, okay? Running shoes in the car, water, energy bar. I learned from the tsunami, it's really important to have socks and hat. I was in a tropical environment, and it started to rain, and there was, you know, like the homeless feeling. It would have been incredible to have a hat and maybe some socks. I'd also just suggest that you have a plan for a cell phone charger. You don't know, your car can charge it, or you don't know where you'll get to that can charge it. But the reason this is so incredibly important is because when disaster strikes, we're not thinking clearly. So if you have those few details prepared, and the car seems to be like the almighty shelter in a situation like this, it can make a huge difference.
Thank you, Barbara. Welcome to the community, and thank you for sharing some of your survivor messages with us tonight. We appreciate that. I'm going to pause real fast and have Southern California Edison come up and talk a little bit about the medical baseline part of the program. Just a couple more comments on that.
Yeah, I wanted to let everybody know the medical baseline program is not an income-based program. Anybody who relies on medical device of any kind can apply for that program. I'll mention again that Jerry Aguilar is here. We have medical baseline applications in both English and Spanish. The application's also available online. And again, it's very important that we know who you are and what needs you have so we can be sure to accommodate your needs during any outage.
Okay, next question.
Hi, Mike Davenport, I'm a resident, and I had a question for Edison. As to the plan you guys have gone through as far as hardening lines and things of that sort, you laid out a timeline where you have certain benchmarks of things you're trying to do by the end of 2020, by the end of 25. And I know that's a broad plan across your whole network. What is the timeline in our community? And are there additional improvements to the transmission lines that go, through Ventura and Carpinteria and here? I run in the mountains a lot, and I know the area over Carpinteria, you guys have made significant improvements, and that same thing hasn't happened here yet, and I don't know, is that part of your plan? And then the last question I have is as to, the Thomas Fire, which obviously burned everything here. How does that factor into your PSP plan, given that there's no real fuel in the mountains right here today?
So I'll try to remember all of them. You might want to remind me if I forget. So on the infrastructure hardening, yes, the wildfire mitigation plan that we've filed with the California Public Utilities Commission does go through 2025. So we're looking to install the covered conductor, composite poles, faster acting fuses, reclosers, the weather stations, the cameras. All of that is part of that wildfire mitigation plan. At this point in time, I'm not able to give you an exact scope or timeline of that work specifically here in Santa Barbara County. I'm actually working on getting that information as we speak, but I don't have that exact answer for this area. Transmission lines. Yes, we have 2 transmission lines that serve this area, as well as several sub-transmission lines that serve this area. We did recently complete what we called the Santa Barbara County Reliability Project, which was upgrading our sub-transmission system that would be able to pick up, added additional capacity to that sub-transmission system should the 220 lines go down for any reason. So we do have contingency plans in place if any disaster were to hit our transmission infrastructure. Am I missing one? Yes, so absolutely. All of that information is taken into consideration when we are deciding to do a PSPS. Definitely one of the criteria is, the vegetation in that area, and if it's recently burned or not.
So, Rondi, now that Mr. Davenport has asked his questions, you won't be surprised that 6 of my 24 questions I asked you at the Board of Supervisors hearing came from Mr. Davenport. I want to zero in on just one of those. I know that you don't have it, but I think for us, it would be tremendously useful the quicker that Edison can let us know about the mitigation, not only of the lines, but the mitigation of the cameras and where they will be in this county. That would help us a
Sure,
whole lot.
I can get that.
Those are the wildfire cameras she had on the PowerPoint.
Okay. You know, I think that that information that Verizon provided was really helpful. And with that, I'd like to bring up a representative from our Frontier Cable in the area, just to talk a little bit about their footprint here real quick and what they've done to prepare.
Thank you very much. And like my business partners at Verizon Wireless had mentioned, I'm with Frontier Communications. I'm the operations director for the West region. And like the wireless networks, the wireline networks are also backed up. We have our own power generation equipment in our central offices. When we get out into the more rural parts of our network, they are backed up by battery. I always recommend in a community like this that you have an old style phone at home, what I like to refer to as a dumb phone, because we do provide power on our own network on the lines to where the phones will work. The closer you are to our central office, the more likely you are that it's going to work indefinitely, because our power generation plants, like everybody else, are fueled by fuel, and we just refill them to keep them going. But when you get out into the more rural parts of the network, they are battery powered. They're going to last 4 to 8 hours, which is fairly typical for telecommunications networks. And depending on our access to them, we will try to back them up with generator, and depending on how many customers there are on them, just like everybody else does in the community. And as the gentleman from Verizon Wireless mentioned, if a fire does burn through the network, it does burn the lines down, and a lot of times it does cut off the wireless towers also, because they are on our network and we're on their network. So I didn't want him to feel like he was hanging out here by himself, but that's just a reality of how some of the networks are laid out. If they're aerial, they're very susceptible to fire. The poles burn down, cables drop to the ground, whether it's copper or fiber, they're gonna burn or melt. So, but just to assure you, our offices are backed up by emergency power also. You know, and we usually keep at least 72 hours of fuel on board, and we have emergency response teams that we have built in place to refuel them, or our own people will bring fuel. And we have our own power generation equipment that's portable, and sometimes some of these equipment cabinets will run off of something as simple as a Honda generator. It's just a matter of how many of them are down and what areas are down. But when you're being evacuated, it's very difficult to get up in a certain area, and when the areas are under fire, they're almost impossible to get to until the fire departments clear those areas for us to go in safely. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next question, sir.
Yes, my name is Frank Blue. I'm a Montecito resident and was a survivor of the mudslide and the fires. And we've been through a number of evacuations. And I know that we're living in a different world now. The climate clearly is changing, notwithstanding people's dissenting from that view. But we know that that's so. And I guess my question really is more directed to our PUC representative who's here. The PSPS process, when all of a sudden I started hearing about this is like a bolt out of the blue for me. I don't know about other people in this community, but I had not heard of this. All of a sudden it was an accomplished fact. It was going to happen. We had to sort of adjust ourselves to this new reality. It was upon us and could happen to us at any time. But from my perspective, this was all quite a shock to me. I did not know anything about this. I did not know that this had all been hashed out at the state level at the PUC. And all of a sudden, we are now facing a series of potential power shutdowns in this community that could happen at any time. We could be shut off from power from any time, anywhere from 4 to 7 days at a minimum. This could have serious economic, personal, health effects on a wide variety of people. There would seem to be no apparent legal recourse for anyone who suffers People who do their business at home could be without power for days. People who have appliances at home could see their appliances destroyed on recharge. People who are ill, who depend upon electric power to literally survive, could see themselves impaired. But yet none of us have any recourse either to the PUC or, insofar as I'm aware, to the courts. And it just struck me as very odd that these things could now be happening to us, where we could see our life, our property, our way of living seriously impacted with no recourse really to any court or any other body, insofar as I'm aware, should Edison give effect to one of their or multiple PSPSs. Right. We effectively have to rely upon Edison's good faith and the use of their untrammeled discretion, from what I can tell. What can we do? This really doesn't seem to be, this seems to be in the lexicon of the lawyers, a potential for taking a property and life without due process. And I'd like to know what the state and the PUC is doing about that.
Yeah, and I'm not a lawyer, so, but and I would say is that what this comes from an interpretation of our implementing statutes by our lawyers, that the utility has the ability to do this, has the ability to take their service offline when it's causing imminent danger to life and property. This opinion was given a few years back and has been in effect in San Diego County, SDG&E territory, from the fires they had there. This was rapidly extended, quite rapidly last summer to, well, we had a resolution which determined that, well, we already knew that that PG&E and SCE had the authority to do this. We clarified that authority and put conditions on that in terms of coming up and notifying people and starting to come up with practices to help people deal with this situation. We don't, I mean, in terms of what to do about it, new legislation could be introduced to take that authority away. We don't believe we have the legal authority to stop them from doing it. What we do have is some authority devolved to us from the legislature to put conditions on them when they do that. And that's with our current rulemaking. We have the ability to put conditions on their actions, but beyond that, we can't stop them from doing it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to us to bring a microphone? Any additional questions? Oh, there we go.
Hi, my name is Carol Denary, and I might be in a minority in this room, but I rent. Hello?
There you go.
I rent, and I don't pay gas and electricity. That's in my rent. I tweeted to SCE, and they said to make sure you get your landlord to put your name and your phone number on their account so that you can also be notified. That seems a little bit silly. Isn't there some way that whoever signs up for Aware and Prepare at a specific address that Edison could, contact us that way, rather than my landlady saying, oh, hey, hi.
So you are explaining the current situation accurately, and that's for both, business and residential tenants. The notification goes to the customer of record, and so we do ask, the tenants to ask the, building owner or our homeowner to include you. We are in the process. I can't even put a timeline on it yet. I would like to say by the end of the year, incorporating a process where anybody and everybody can sign up for an outage notification. So even if you were a tourist coming into town and wanted to know what might be coming your way, you could, and that if you are a tenant or anybody that wants to be aware of outages in the area, that you can sign up.
And
so that's coming soon.
And if I could speak for a moment from the Aware and Prepare, Ready SBC standpoint. So anytime that the county or local government is receiving notifications, we, at least on the county side, we are trying to follow those up with additional notification through, if you're registered with Aware and Prepare. So going to Ready SBC, clicking that link. Now, I do want to caution, if you've done the Nixle registration, which is where you text in your zip code, that only tells us your zip code and doesn't give us a refined area of notification. So, and we're trying not to, notify an entire zip code if only a certain area is impacted. So I would encourage you that if you did sign up via text message or through Nixle, that you should still go to the Ready SBC website, go to the link, create an account, and fill out additional contact information so that we have a better idea of exactly where you are, and we can get more targeted notifications to each of you. And so when we get those notifications, we will continue to push those forward and back out. And I know Yanneris is back there waving at me, reminding me, so we do have staff in the back who have laptops, and they can help walk you through that process of doing some additional registration if needed. Change of address, so again, so if you create that, go back into your account, log in, and do an update and changes to your address, cell phone, any of those, different email address, all of those things. Sure.
Thank you. So with that, we're going to stick around a while. We've got a lot of agency representatives if you have specific questions. But I want to thank you for coming down tonight and learning more about the program, and have a nice evening.